Hey everybody, John Greenwald here with theblackvault.com. Anybody who follows this channel knows that I am a huge advocate for you guys to use the Freedom of Information Act and go after information. Obviously, I talk a lot about the requests that I do here and documents that I get from the Black Vault, but I'm a huge advocate for helping others try and utilize the act, find something that they want, go after it, and hopefully get it. Today, I want to talk about a story that is not mine. It was a Freedom of Information Act request done by a researcher and investigator known as Mark Sakoti, and I hope I have his name pronounced correctly. But Mark had reached out to me about these documents, and he did a great job tracking down emails that went to and from some Navy personnel. So he's one of the few that I know of, including myself, that go after these kind of internal communications. I've written a lot about that in the last year or two, getting into the Air Force emails, the Navy emails. If you missed that, it's also a very good, I would say, supplemental piece of information after this video. Look in the link below and I'll shoot you right over to the website so you can see the documents. There's some pretty interesting ones that have come to light. That being said, what Mark did was he received an email from somebody whose name may ring a bell with you guys. Now, let me go ahead and pull up the document here. But you'll know the name Joseph Gradisher. For those that have followed the Black Vault long enough, you'll recall in September of 2019, I had published a story that I had no idea would be as viral as it became. This was before the DoD released those UFO videos. They had not acknowledged them before. They were calling them leaks. And Joseph Gradisher gave me a statement about the official designation for those videos, which was unidentified aerial phenomena. They had no idea what they were. Now, the reason why that was important was this was the first time that they ever did that. But in addition, this was the first time that they really admitted to having UFO videos and the fact that they have no idea what they are. Story went viral, rest was history. That started the countdown then to them essentially being put into a pickle for releasing those videos. So that's where Joseph Gradisher's name may ring a bell to you. And if not, well, that's the context, that he is the spokesperson, one of many within the Navy, but he, before the DoD said, hey, we're taking the lead on this, which is what they've done, Joseph Gradisher was very, I would say, vocal about talking about UAPs. I would say more so than any other spokesperson that I have encountered. Now, the quick backstory before I get into the email itself, I won't go through all of them that Mark got, but the quick synopsis is a journalist from France had written in requesting an on-camera interview or a recorded interview, potentially via audio. I'm not really sure what they were aiming for, but essentially an interview about UAPs. Now, the DoD and the Navy and all of them have not done any recorded interviews, but they have released the statements, one of which I have already talked about with the UAP designation for those videos. They've made a lot of other ones as well. So they don't do the interviews, and internally, Mark got the communications back and forth on responding to that requester. Essentially, they're saying, no, we're not doing any interviews, and here's why. And that's what this particular one email essentially represents and why it's important. But revealed here are a couple very interesting tidbits. Now, you'll see here I highlighted a couple. These are my highlights, not from the FOIA, just to kind of remind myself, too, what to read, because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But essentially, Joseph Gradisher was telling the other spokespeople who are tasked to respond to media inquiries like this on UAPs and various topics to not make any comment whatsoever, that they are very meticulous in what they release, and it goes through many drafts. I know that from experience where I've talked to, let's say, Susan Goff, who's the OSD spokesperson, and you can tell just by her responses to me that it just takes a long time. She'll write something, she has to send it to the chain of the command, up the chain of command, make sure everybody approves it, they all give their stamp of approval, and out it goes. So there's a lot that goes into these statements, regardless of people actually caring to believe them or not. They do have a lot of steps to them. So what Joseph Gradisher was saying was make no comment at all. The nuances of all this are such that any deviations from the statements the DoD makes result in multiple news stories and additional FOIA requests at various levels. In other words, when they release something, it creates a flurry of coverage and FOIA requests. So not only by myself, not only by Mark, but obviously there's a lot of other people just because of the UAP topic that are now getting their feet wet with FOIA, and that's so exciting to hear. If you guys are watching this and say, hey, I want to file a FOIA request too, do it. You never know what you come up with, whether it be UAP related or not. I'm a big advocate for it. The email's kicker, I would say, is this particular portion here. Also, generally speaking, we let the normal FOIA process work as it is supposed to, but we have been requesting that FOIA offices coordinate with us on UAP-focused FOIA responses before they hit the reply so that new terms /language /etc. aren't introduced that complicate the overall messaging efforts. In other words, whatever the FOIA officers want to release and how they release it has to be cleared by public affairs before. I am not insinuating this is illegal because it's not. I do not believe that there is anything essentially wrong in a legal sense with this. I'm no attorney, but just from my experience, and I had reached out to a couple people that I know that are much smarter than me when it comes to the nitty-gritty legal aspect of this, there's really nothing wrong with that in a legal sense. But there, in my opinion, is something very wrong with it in more or less I would say the perception sense, the way that we view the Freedom of Information Act. More on that in a second. The second kicker to this email was additionally, there is now a security classification guidance document at the secret level that addresses the UAP issue and what may/may not be discussed publicly. Happy to get that if you see the need. So Joseph Gradisher kind of confirmed a document that I had a hunch existed. Back in January, I filed for that SCG, or Security Classification Guide, that Gradisher here is referencing. Call it a hunch, but I figured that they would have something like that. So I filed to OSD and I filed to the Navy. I'll be releasing that when it comes in. Hopefully it does. I always have, if they deny it in full and say, nope, it's secret, always have appeal language worked out, just in case I need it if they deny it. So it won't be over if they say, nope, you can't have it. But at that point, it's game on, and then I will go through the appeal process, see what happens. But that's jumping the gun a little bit. I want to go back to why this is important. Like, why should we care? Well, the SCG document confirmed here, well, that's awesome, because that means my FOIA request in January will yield the responsive document, or if it remains classified, well, I'll make that vocal. I'll be pretty vocal about that and make it public, and we'll send that out there. So that's good. That's confirmation. So kudos to Mark for bringing that to light with this email. But also the other part on having the public affairs offices essentially get into the business of the Freedom of Information Act. Now, these are two different offices for those who aren't aware. You have a Freedom of Information Act office, and you have essentially FOIA personnel, FOIA case officers. Some agencies have one or two. Others have many more than that, where they just get so many requests, they have quite a few different case officers. OSD is a prime example where I deal with numerous FOIA case officers, one of which oversees everything, who happens to be a very nice man. So most of these FOIA officers are actually a pleasure to deal with, contrary to what you might believe. But that's not public affairs. Public affairs is a different office. They are tasked to communicate with the media. They're the ones that will do all those crazy steps on what they will or will not release when it comes to statements. Obviously, UFO and UAP related statements have been hotly contested. That is, when the UFO community doesn't like them. When they like them, it's aha, it's gospel. So the public affairs offices have a very interesting role in all of this because of that, I would say, just drastic differences on how they are viewed, especially by the UFO community. If that public affairs office says something they like, then they love it, and the Public Affairs Office is the best, and they're being truthful. If they say something that they don't, well, they're stupid and they don't know any better, and they're trying to muddy the waters, and they have, some conspiracy intent. So I'm always fascinated by the view of public affairs, but they're always two different entities. Okay, I lost my camera there, but two different entities. They are not the same. So is it right for public affairs to get into FOIA business? In my opinion, and it's only just that, no. Here's the deal why. The true spirit of the Freedom of Information Act gives people of the world, you don't even have to be an American citizen, access to information. Now, the process, well, in my opinion, is flawed, but it works if you have patience and determination, and you just go for it. So it gets a bad rap, but don't knock it until you try it, because you can have amazing results with it. That is the true spirit, is for us, you and me, anybody that's watching anywhere in the world can hold the American government accountable for their past actions, for their future actions, and essentially you can create this window into this shadowed past that is marred by massive amounts of secrecy and in many cases deceit of the American people. And the FOIA brings a lot of that to light. Takes a lot of fighting, but that's what it's there for. And that's the spirit. And when I had mentioned the FOIA officers being a pleasure to deal with in most cases, there's a human element in this where those FOIA case officers, in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, want that information out. They want to do their job correctly, and they want to give you what you request. But what happens when public affairs gets involved? Their primary responsibility is not the spirit of the Freedom of Information Act and being transparent. They are tasked with this responsibility for creating a message and sticking to that message. And this email here is clear that if you deviate from that message, it can create a mess. So the public affairs offices care much less about being transparent and more about the message, whatever that message may be. That's the harm in colliding these two offices. That is the threat, pardon the word, to, I would say, the disclosure of something when it comes to the UAP phenomena, because the Public Affairs Office will thwart that effort when it comes to the FOIA officers who do want to be transparent. When you do have information, documents, videos, PowerPoint presentations, or whatever that do not fit in the 9 FOIA exemption categories, therefore it is releasable, why can and why will the Public Affairs Office thwart that effort and say, you know what, this may cause an adverse reaction to our message, so you're not cleared to do that? I am not aware of any power that the Public Affairs Office has over FOIA. In a lot of cases, the Public Affairs Office will not give you information or elaborate as a journalist. But when you go through the FOIA and fight for the records through the Act, you will get them released. So you can see a clear contrast between both offices. When they come together and the Public Affairs Office oversees it, that is the damage. That is potentially thwarting the hard work of not only Mark. I'd like to consider myself in that category of working to get information out, but also many, many countless others who utilize the Freedom of Information Act and are pounding them for answers to essentially declassify every single detail. Those efforts are thwarted by a public affairs office who does not have transparency or truth as their top priority. It's maintaining the message, and that's the damage. So bottom line, awesome work to Mark. Thank you so much for sharing this document with me and allowing me to share it with all of you as always. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, my main motivation is you just spreading the word. So if you can pass these videos around to those who you feel like it, that would be awesome. A thumbs up always helps too. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The Black Vault does have 2 channels, so make sure you are subscribed to both. One is the government video archive, not original content, but used to essentially store information. And the one you're on now, well, that's all the original content, hence the name, the Black Vault Originals. So make sure you subscribe, turn those notifications on. And thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I'm John Greenwald Jr., signing off. We'll see you next time.